Are we on? Yes, I guess we are. Yeah, so my name is Frank. I'm going to talk a little bit about timing and sync over the wide area network. There's a lot of people in the room that has been working on time and accurate time and reliable time and redundant time in the room today. But I think maybe I will have a bit of a different angle to the topic. Yes, I will be here this afternoon if there's any more questions. So what's all this fuss about time? We all know that the time, now it's about 10:45, but that's one thing. The media broadcasters like NRK, SVT in Sweden, they really need accurate time and frequency to be able to edit and broadcast and match audio and video. That is super important. Then you get out of lip sync and those kind of things if you don't have accurate time. And the telecom industry, like the mobile operators, they are using PTP, precision time protocol, to distribute accurate, synchronous time out to all of the base stations, to the radios. And they're also using the accurate time in other parts of the network. My favorite customer group these days is the power utilities. So all substations within the Kingdom of Norway need an accurate time. In those, think of a transmission line, 400 kilovolt. There are protection units in both ends of these power lines. And those units, they need synchronous time to be able to sort of trip, as we say, they are sort of switching off the fuse at the same time. If they don't, the whole thing can catch fire. So meaning within those kind of industries, accurate time and frequency is super important. Kjetil Otto Olsen has already mentioned sort of what's the result if you don't have accurate time. Financial institutes, they are more on the sort of the time of the day. They really need sort of a time stamp on when the transaction is happening. So that's another use. And then, of course, we are seeing more and more requirement for accurate time and frequency within industrial automation. The more automation you have, the more autonomous guided vehicles, the more robots, you really need also to have an accurate time. So this is also a requirement coming in from them. And the thing is that they have the same need, and we can then distribute an accurate, reliable, secure time to these kind of locations from a central point. And we will get back to that as well. So I will use some words, and I like to sort of give this as an example. So this is, you have a couple of radio towers, E-Node Bs, that needs accurate time to get to actually work. And in this scenario, we are bringing in accurate time for the GNSS, GPS, the satellite system, that it has a super accurate time. GNSS has a super accurate time that we can then synchronize towards, and then we can use that to provide the correct clock to the radio towers. But in those, then you need one of these GNSS receiver in each and every single radio tower. Another alternative is, of course, to then sync to what's called the grandmaster. We get back to all of these things. And then we will use this one to then provide the clock to the radio towers over the network. And then we're using a protocol called PTP. And this is what we are. So this solution is also working within the utility sector. Each and every substations within Norway is actually today synced from GNSS. And then I say each and every one. Yes, we have come a little bit further, but from a top mind, each and every one is synced from GNSS. Has any comments to this? Is this a fantastic solution? Syncing substations, mobile towers from GNSS? Come on. No, that's the answer. It's not a very good solution. And that's why we are here. So even this one, we are syncing this grandmaster from the GNSS and distributing over PTP. It's still not 100%, but at least here you can sync and get sort of going. And then if you see GNSS drifting off, then you can then hold over on internal oscillator and those kind of things. So I guess the reason why you commented this, and this says GPS, it should have said GNSS. I had to ship off the slides before I noticed that mistake. GPS is the European, no, the American one, sorry. But we also have other sets of satellites, and all of those, sort of a common name for all of those is GNSS. So we have both the American ones, but we also have the European, and we also have a Russian one that we might not be using, and we also have a Chinese one that we might not be using. But at least we have two. And then, so what's the main challenge? The main challenge is that jamming a GNSS solution is very easy. The radio signal in the GNSS transmission, it is so weak, so it is so easy to actually jam it from a very simple device on the ground or in the plane or in a helicopter. It is super easy. So that's jamming. Spoofing, that is when you're actually transmitting a signal that you have generated yourself, will have the same impact. And then you can also start to do some meakening, where you're receiving a signal at one location and you're transmitting it at a different location. All of these kind of attacks, if you may call it that, will make the GNSS time drift off. It will make the protection unit in a substation trip. It will make a mobile tower disconnect, so you're not able to transmit or call using that mobile tower. It will also affect incoming missiles. So you could actually then jam incoming missiles, so they can't use GNSS to navigate. So this is actually what's happening in Ukraine. So the Russians, they are jamming to get the power substations down. Ukrainians, they are jamming to affect the incoming missiles and drones, meaning that over there, it's jamming all the time now. And speaking to our friends at NetNod during the break, so one thing that we have done is also to support the Ukrainian utility companies to then actually have, yes, because they were 100% reliant on GNSS. So we had to come up with a solution where let's see, is it possible to survive for a certain amount of time, even if you lose GNSS? Or you recognize that your GNSS or GPS is actually being jammed, then you should not use that one, and then you should go on to what's called holdover, and then you should use internal oscillators. So we were able to keep those substations going for a certain amount of time before we again need to have an accurate time being inserted. So this is one way of surviving, but if you're able to keep your time running. That's in war. Luckily enough, we are not there, but we are still being impacted. So this is a slide that I just keep on adding news. So the last one was Ursula that had to land her plane, I think it was last week, not reliant on GPS at all, because that was jammed. If she had been using the GPS signal, they would have missed the airfield. I haven't spoken to them, but there are information saying about the Widerøe pilots flying up north. They have sort of now said, please don't tell us when the GPS is jammed, because we know. Please tell us if it's not. So up north in Norway, it is so bad, so now they are not relying on GPS at all. And of course, this is now, of course, being documented. So all the red and orange are areas as of 7th of September. That is a high degree of jamming. So in these areas, these GPS are 100% unusable. And there are several ways of documenting this. But this is what's called gpsjam.com, I do believe. That is also gathering all of these kind of information. So back to this slide again. This sounds like, okay, so let's come up with a solution where we can not be reliant on GPS, and then we can just provide PTP, precision time protocol, is a protocol that we can distribute phase to all of these kind of customers. A lot of people in the room are providing services to, let's say, power utilities. Power utilities is not using the same profile as the telecom, because there are some very specific requirements and needs within each industry that then again has developed their own PTP profile. So it's not, yes, I do PTP 5988. Great. No. Because within the PTP, you have so many different variances and versions. So even within the telecom profile, the power profile, there are at least 3 or 4 versions. So, and this is very, very dependent on the implementation. Just as an example, and don't shoot me because this is a very old slide. This is just one example of all the ITUT profiles that is coming out of study group 15. And what the telecom profiles, the telecom industry, mobile operators, they have ended up by using what's called 8275.1. So if you haven't heard about 8275.1, that's what you should be transporting in your wide area network. Can I just raise a hand? How many in the room has configured 8275.1 in your wide area network? Kari. Okay, so it's not too many. Okay. So why are we actually then using 8275.1? First of all, it is a full path profile. So you have full path support of PTP through your entire wide area network. And it's also reliant on SYNC-E, synchronous Ethernet, that you will have. You will then get your frequency from. So the frequency is coming from SYNC-E, phase is coming from PTP. You also have another thing that we are utilizing within the different segments. You have the possibility of doing interworking between the profiles. And that's where we're coming from. So in the wide area, in the transmission part of the network, you are using 8275.1. Because that is a protocol that you really can transport over very long distances in very long, huge networks without compromising on the quality and the accuracy, because that's the most important thing. I don't know if this is Cisco specific, but it might be something in 8275.1 that can load share on bundle links. Might be. I don't know if that's Cisco specific. And yes, for a power utility, this can also increase the accuracy. So if you're able to distribute using 8275.1, how many times have I said that now? 8275.1? 50? Yeah. Telecom profile. If you can distribute and transmit using that profile, then you will interwork. You will translate into power profile in the substations. And this is what we're also going to talk a little bit about. I haven't created this slide. Easy deployment. Yeah. It is fully possible, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's easy. And what I now will show is just some testing that I recently have done, even if we have been testing and documenting and piloting PTP for years. So this is also one of those, it's not IPv6, it's not that bad for implementation, in how long it takes. But PTP is really something that we've been testing for a long time. And what's a little bit specific about this? This is a lab setup, and this is simulating a substation down here, and you have a small substation at the top as well, and then you have a wide area network in between. And one of the good things with this testing that we did a year ago was that we even had Siemens Energy in the lab with their utility devices. So they had protection units in the lab. So we really were seeing proper traffic going through the network and not only simulated traffic. So if I were just going to split the lab in two so it's easier to see. So this is now the wide area, and that's the substation. And as you can see, we have a well-known vendor, Spirent, to generate some traffic. So we are sending traffic through the network, normal IMEX or whatever traffic, just to pump and load the links. Because PTP that are then running in this part of the network in telecom profile, 8275.1, needs to survive, and it's on a link-by-link basis. It's actually on, it should be able to survive even if the links are running at 100%. And the telecom profile, first of all, two things that is super important here. At the very top, we had something called GM, Grandmasters. And that is a ultra-reliable timing source of different vendors. It's not from us. In Mindberger is one that could be used. On a NetNode, you're probably using something else. But those are then inserting both SyncE and PTP into the network. And the Grandmaster, that's the source for an accurate time. And think about it. Those devices up there is quite expensive. Not only to purchase as a CapEx, but also to operate over time. A small utility company within Norway, they need a Grandmaster. I'm not concerned about Statnett and Telenor and Telia and the big ones, because they have both the people and also the financial strength to actually acquire a Grandmaster. But what about all the others? We should have. Okay, I thought you should say it. We in Norway, we should have a national clock, because those Grandmasters should be shared between very many users. And I'm not concerned about the big ones, I'm concerned about the small ones. Because even a small utility at the western coast of Norway relies on this. If their time is drifting off, their protection units will trip. No power being distributed. So that's one reason why we should have a national clock. And come on, the Swedes has made it. And he is smiling. He's smiling. So we should have this. Because that Grandmaster is then inserting both PTP and SyncE into the network. And we are transmitting it through the wide area network. 8275.1 is a link-by-link protocol. It's master-slave, master-slave, master-slave through the entire network before you then hit the substation in the bottom. And another acronym, BMCA, Best Master Clock Algorithm, is an algorithm that each and every one of the routers on the way is using to calculate what's the path from my clock to the Grandmaster. BMCA is a fantastic algorithm. The only thing is that when you get down to a router where that has more than one interface going towards the Grandmaster, BMCA is a very dangerous protocol or algorithm, because it will see the two Grandmasters being equal. And the algorithm is going through very many steps. I have a cheat sheet in my pocket if we would like to see it. But at the bottom, there are something called steps removed. So if everything is equal, that it will be in this kind of a network. Steps removed is kind of how many hops do you have towards your grandmaster. And if you have something happening and you have to converge, you really do not want that to be unpredictable. So all our testing that we have done is that one of the first best practice is to have full control of all the paths for PTP. And PTP should be going towards or using the same path as SYNC-E. And the two protocols, they are different. So they don't automatically follow the same path. And I will show you some more details on that one later. And then if you look at the substation over here, as I said, in the network, you are using telecom profile, because that's the only way of transporting it over a longer distance. And in substation, you are using power profile. At the top of a substation, we have a device that can do interworking. So it will use PTP telecom profile coming in. Through sort of an interworking function, it will provide power profile going into the substation. And by doing so, we can then utilize a common grandmaster infrastructure, providing a proper power profile into the substation. This is based on all the testing that we have done together with all the utilities within Norway. This is what they are all looking at now. And at that interworking location, you might actually have a GNSS receiver as well as a backup if everything fails, or some actually using the GNSS as a primary. And then if it fails, it will fail over to PTP. So that's a different sort of scenarios there. But the thing is that this profile needs to interwork and consume this one. And in the network here, we have point-to-point links with an IP address in both of ends. One of the best ways of doing this is actually to run PTP directly over DWDM, on DWDM. But that's even more complicated when it comes to hardware support, multi-vendor, because one of the reasons why I would like to run it on DWDM directly is that if you are passing transponders that you might possibly traverse here, a transponder might introduce as much latency or deviations that it might actually get the clock to start drifting off. So even a transponder or multiple transponders might jeopardize what we are trying to do here. But from the testing we've done, transponders should be okay. But the far best one is actually to run it directly on the DWDM. To be able to measure this, if you're going to test this, there is a device here and a device at the top. We are using Calnex. Calnex is sort of measuring the time that is inserted at the grandmaster, or being a client at grandmaster, and measuring all the way down to the substation here. And by doing so, we can then see how much and how good clock quality we have. One of the tests that we did was actually to switch off PTP incoming. So we have lost PTP. How long can that substation survive? Our test shows that if we didn't lose SYNC-E, but we only lost PTP, it's a very strange scenario because PTP and SYNC-E is coming from the same grandmaster. But let's say that we actually did that. Our test shows that the internal interworking function would actually survive by only having SYNC-E. But if you lose power, so they boot and come up again, then they will come up with PTP timestamp 1. What's timestamp 1? What's timestamp 1 in Unix? 1970, 1st of January, 000. Same thing with PTP. Good one, thank you. And then, of course, everything in the what's going on? We don't understand. So then it needs to sort of sync up and get the proper time. And then you see that the time is syncing up, and then all the devices are going into phase lock, as we say it. Anyone that would like working with abbreviations, I recommend that you start to work on PTP. There is a lot of abbreviations within PTP. I've already used best clock algorithm, but also best time transmitter clock algorithm. So BTCA and BMCA is one of the most used ones. But if you would like, you can also learn all the others. So what I said, PTP and SYNC should be aligned. If not, we can have loops. Looking into the room, I do believe there are even my age here. We don't like loops, do we? We don't like loops. So the result, if the two algorithms doesn't end up with the same path, you can have the SYNC going one way and PTP going the other way. And this is a situation that you really do not want. So then you will have PTP bouncing, and loops and bouncing, that's something that we don't like. Because you might actually have then PTP going one way, SYNC going the other, and this you don't want. So what we have been using then is actually then to manipulate and manually configure what's called local priority and input priority. Input priority for SYNC and local priority for PTP. And then, on a hop-by-hop basis, you can then fully control that PTP and SYNC is going the same path. This was in TOL. We introduced local priority to mirror SYNC input priority. This is our way of configuring it. Other vendors, they can probably do it with a different command. The result of this one is that you then automatically have PTP and SYNC going the same path. And I can assure you, please, if you're working on PTP, this is one of the most important experiences. Because going back to my topology, and I'm soon done. Looking at this one, if you get a failure in your network, so the entire network needs to converge, if you don't have control on this, I can almost guarantee that PTP will go into holdover state. The protection unit will then say, whoops, unusual clock, I will trip to protect my entire power grid. Or the mobile network will say, whoops, unusable clock, I will then stop providing services for my mobile network. It is fully possible. One good thing with PTP is that it is been doing quite a lot of testing when it comes to interoperability between vendors. So 8275.1 is actually quite well defined. But you still, it is not like just turning on ISIS. We need to be a little bit more careful about how you actually then implement this one. So at the end of the day, based on what we have been testing with, especially with all my utility customers, they are now all looking at this. They are all implementing this according to the testing that we've done. And thanks to Siemens Energy, that was actually a part of the testing. And now we are getting closer to a situation where we are not reliant on GNSS anymore. GNSS, 100% reliant on GNSS, is not a very good state to be in, to be quite honest.